those vegetarian hamburgers and stuff like that will give you an enormous amount of gas. Anytime I've tried them or anybody else has tried them, you're going to be antisocial shortly after you eat them.
Yeah. Okay, we are live now. We're live now on Talking Niagara on YouTube, and I will put a link to the Facebook one as soon as we're done on the day. I tried to do X, but it doesn't like us with X.
X doesn't like us?
No, X basically wants me to have a validated account, which means I have to pay
Elon's being difficult.
Which means I have to pay them money, right?
Look, Elon's a Canadian citizen. We got to tell him, look, buddy, come on now. Canada was a segue into North America. He stayed here 2 years at Queen's University in Ontario before he made the jump into the U.S.
Where he's from? Where is he from?
He's from South Africa, but his mom's a Canadian.
Yeah.
His mom's from Western Canada.
Yeah. I thought that was the case. I knew he wasn't. Yeah. I knew he wasn't born here or the US, but yeah.
He has actually. Okay. I'll tell him this: like he's had. They had some sort of botched interview, Elon Musk with Trump.
Yeah, I know. I know. I saw it. I've seen a couple of snatches of it. I haven't seen the whole thing, right? And oh my God, it made Trump look like a fool because, you know, especially those people that follow statistics and just do fact checking.
Well, the thing is, he's invited Kamala Harris on as well.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I don't think she'll go for it because he's a Trump supporter right now. He thinks his own particular, I don't know, big businesses are better off with Trump. This is a guy that should just stay out of politics. Look what happened to Henry Ford. He got mixed up in politics. He was a raging anti-Semite, and that spilled into his politics. Although he did try to stop the First World War. So he's often compared to Henry Ford being kind of a on the fringe lunatic when it came to politics. He's not good at it. He's good at a lot of stuff, but politics he is not good at.
Yeah, but there's probably lots of people out there who will argue the same for Donald Trump, right?
Well, it's difference. If Elon Musk wanted to run for president, yeah, okay, but he isn't. He's just kind of actually too much on his mind, and he's picking up little bits of this and that. You know, I mean, Einstein. He's kind of like an Einstein. He's a brilliant man, and but Einstein was very smart when he was asked to become the president of Israel. He says no. He says, I can't do that. I'm not a politician, and I think and it shouldn't be. And he didn't have political ideas because he knew he was out of touch in those areas. And I think Elon Musk should do the same.
Well, actually,
anyway, he did invite Kamala Harris on X in the same way he invited Trump.
But remember, in Trump's history, there were times when he was blatantly asked to come on because he's always been this kind of TV personality, probably from his 30s. You know, certainly from any time from the late 70s up to now, he's been that kind of TV personality. And probably you kind of go, well, why is this guy, a CEO getting that much airtime because other CEOs don't, right? So,
because it's the press. It's the press. Good morning. Good morning, Slick.
Yeah, that's Gary Wilkins. So good morning, Gary. Yeah. Okay. So
the GB from Parts Unknown.
Yeah, so that's such an interesting thing because, in fact, Trump was asked many times if he would be interested in becoming president and turned it down on at least 3 occasions, to my knowledge.
Well, he's probably just waiting for the right opportunity. But that aside from it, Elon Musk has invited Kamala Harris to
Yeah,
speak on X.
I know. Yeah,
I don't know if she'll do it, and everything around Trump
I
seems to
think.
be some kind of conspiracy because when he was speaking on X, it was full of glitches, and you think Elon Musk, the super genius, would make sure there was no glitches in this interview, but it is said that that the bandwidth was overloaded on purpose, and that's initially what Elon Musk said too, something of that kind, that it was purposely overloaded because it couldn't be broadcast. But he backed off on that because it's kind of ridiculous. Because if somebody did that, it would be a very obvious thing, and it could be obviously, you know. But Elon, shut up, buddy, shut up. Get back to making rockets and electric cars and stuff like that. You don't understand politics one bit.
Yeah, well, I don't know. That could be an interesting show. I don't know whether I'd even watch it though. You know.
Well, Kamala Harris right now is a very, as we talked
Oh
about
no,
yesterday,
she's a hot topic.
she has a very, very scripted narrative. I don't know if an interview like that would come off very well because she would stick to her points, and it wouldn't, like, at least with Trump, you're going to get some excitement. He's going to say something, you know. Kamala will just smile.
That's guaranteed. Yeah, Trump will. Whether you agree with him or not, Trump will say something outrageous. That's for sure. And that's what the ex-heads will look for.
Yeah, and it would. Yeah. So in any case, I just thought I'd bring that up. Also, one thing I should bring up when we were talking about the Niagara Falls University here, and what kind of potential stress it would have on our services like Salvation Army and Project Share and so on.
Yeah.
Laura, I caught a bit of the council meeting last night where she talked about that, and I was wondering why she was bringing that kind of stuff up, particularly when a student is supposed to come here with a certain amount of money and a certain amount of wherewithal, so that they don't do that kind of thing. What she found out talking to other communities is that exactly what happens. Students who are trying to save money go to soup kitchens and go to places like Project Share and Salvation Army. And the Penguin, as Paul Lemire calls him, as Burgess, the CEO, came back with, we can't really target one university because we've got like Niagara College, Brock University, and now this one. Apparently, it is accredited university. Remember, I questioned that in our last show, one of our last shows, and apparently, according to him, it is an accredited university and recognized by Ontario. So it does seem to be a legitimate institution.
It's only got about 4 classes in it, though.
Yeah, and they do have there are holding 125 spaces for students, but the students that have come so far aren't using them. And as Laura Lococo said, when she looks at advertisement or requests for housing from potential students, she sees that most of the time it's 3 or 4 people, not just one. So it's families that are coming. So they wouldn't really fit too well into a dormitory situation anyway.
Yeah.
Do you have but these things are big money, of course, for universities, and foreign students is a big, huge thing. But what she has found by talking to other communities is that students will, in order to save money, hit the soup kitchens and hit things like Project Share and Salvation Army, and delete the resources for the community that are supposed to be there for the community in order to save money. And
it's an obvious thing. I would think students all over the place would as well.
I don't know. I don't know, but what it is, if
Well,
you are having an influx of foreign students into the area and they're using those facilities, number one, we'll hate them for doing it. Number two, they should the resources are going to be depleted. So it's very, very important that these students.
But the soup kitchen doesn't. The soup kitchen doesn't require ID or any form of,
proof of income.
Check on income, right?
Whereas, no one's turned away. No one's turned away. And I don't think Project Share or something like that either.
Project Share requires an income check.
It may. Yeah, I think you're right about that. Yeah, they do.
Because
Salvation Army, I don't think has the resources to be able to check somebody's whatever you call it.
Project Share requires that basically because they don't want to be giving away to people who can afford it.
Another problem she points out is the amount of kids coming and filling up our schools, and she talked about how that was a stress on the local schools. And she's done her research, really super research, So she's talked to other communities. She's talked to the schools, and what they've had to do. They've had to add desks, more crowded classrooms, which makes it more difficult, evidently, for kids to learn. Although when I was part of the baby boomers, so we had 35 kids to every class anyway, so I don't think you get that many. Slick says, Project Share definitely asks for ID and a form of income. Oh, okay.
Yeah, we know that.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
And, supposedly educated people using our facilities for poor are not that educated, says Mike.
Well, they might be smart enough to abuse the system. I don't think you can get a degree in that, but
well, actually, I think there are some people out there with degrees in abusing the system.
Well, yeah, sometimes, but in any case, that is what has happened, and so the resources, bringing more students into the area may put strain on those resources. I'm not so sure that. So you're I don't know. It's something to do. But we find that these are families mostly coming in. I think probably they expect to stay if they can after they do their schoolwork. I was kind of relieved to find out that the Ontario government kind of recognized it, and it is an accredited university. So
I knew
some of my reservations were eliminated.
All right. Okay, so okay, so Statistics Canada, according to Statistics Canada, the employment rate fell 0.2% to 60.9%, but the unemployment rate remained unchanged at 6.4% during July.
Yeah, and I think that goes in tandem with another story we have about migrant workers. And if you I think, don't we have one? Yeah, we do. What happens is there
is another story about that. Yeah, well, we can bring that forward.
All right, so what's happening is the employment rate or unemployment rate has gone up, and it's sticking there. It's resistant. 6.4% is in this day and age shouldn't be there at all. We have all kinds of employment opportunities, evidently. So what's going on, Peter?
Yeah, that's a fair question because But actually, the thing is, when we've tried to employ people in the past, I've had nothing but trouble with people, getting recruits, people who kind of, I want to work from home. Right? No, we don't do that. Right?
Oh, for the business you work for?
Yeah, yeah. No, our business is very office based. Yeah, we do remote. We do remote stuff like all our hearings for the landlord and tenant board are all remote, but you don't do them at home. You do them in the office.
Um, how that seems to be remarkable to me.
And
So
people,
you're getting a bunch of people that come in
we
and
get
say, "I'm gonna."
applicants all the time who are basically saying, "I want to work from home." How do I know what work you're doing if you're working from home? How do I know the
Uh,
current status? How do I know the current status of that work? And, how much money is left on the file? And how can I give you jobs when I can't just simply hand the file over to you?
well,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a good point. How many of your applicants are like that though?
Probably. Well, I'd say in the last 3 years, probably at least 50%.
So half of them come in. Are they drawn to the fact that there's a lot of computers involved and that's why they apply? They think they can work from
Yeah, I
home.
think so. I
You
think
know.
so. Right.
Well, what about the other ones that expect to come in to work day by
Yeah.
day?
Generally speaking, they're fine. You know, it's the
So they're
ones that what bothers me is the ones who want to do remote, when we don't really have remote because in order to support people, you've got to be in the office.
okay,
You
but
know?
I'm just wondering, like, if have you been able to fill your jobs with adequately
Yeah,
trained
we
people,
we have,
educated
yes, we
people?
have. We have filled our jobs. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So you filled up your jobs. You didn't need to go and get a foreign worker in there.
Okay, Mike says this is a high rate for some other migrant workers as slave labor, and employers are allowed to abuse the migrant workers. This should be abolished.
Well, yeah, he's got a bit of a point because the UN and that segues us to
Yeah,
the other
it does.
article.
It
What?
does
Yeah.
segue us to there, because where we are right now is exactly that. UN envoy doubles down on criticism that Canada's foreign worker program is the breeding ground for slavery.
What has happened is the Canadian government doubled the amount of migrant workers that are allowed to come into Canada, temporary workers. Now, I'm going to leave the UN envoy alone for a moment while I describe what's happened. There was a lot of work undone. What's happened in Canadians, the Canadian government released made it easier for migrant workers to come in and fill in just about every post there is, including places like McDonald's or something like that.
Yeah.
But what has happened here is that is being abused. So now you've got double the amount of people you did 5 or 6 years ago coming into the country to fill. I mean, we have as many migrant workers now, temporary workers, to fill up the city of Regina. So about 225 or 230,000
Wow.
migrant workers. The problem with this is that this is an easy way for employers to get cheap labor. This is an easy way for them not to pay the going wage. This is an easy way for them to run their businesses at a low rate. And if we've got 6.4% unemployment and we have double the amount of migrant workers we did a few years ago, what does that tell you? One of the contributing factors to the domestic unemployment rate is the fact that we have a whole lot of migrant workers taking on jobs, being paid much lower than other people would normally have been. A domestic person, a resident of Canada, would normally be paid. This happens all the time in the United States. That's why they have so many people look the other way with illegals, because you can get a lot of illegals do a lot of work, and you can look the other way. You don't have to give them CPP or whatever else.
The equivalent.
Just throw them some cash and get them out of there.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid this is being abused. And of course, the Canadian government being a bunch of, and I'm not saying this just to be angry, but they're elitists. They don't get it. They don't get it. They haven't been out in the fields. They haven't been in the factories. They haven't swept floors and mopped floors. They haven't painted walls. They haven't put up siding. They haven't installed a window. They don't get it.
Well, I don't know, but when I was a kid, there used to be kids that I knew at school that basically would do in the summer holidays. They do work on farms and things. They'd actually get jobs doing that.
Yes, and there a lot more should be happening that way. And the reason why we use migrant workers is because we're keeping the price low, and that's okay for a certain extent. It's pretty monotonous and long labor for relatively few gains. But when you take a person that comes from, let's say, the islands or Central America, where the standard of living is much lower, and you're paying them a wage, and they go back and they are doing very well from where they came from.
Yeah.
When I talked to the migrant workers that I used to work with, that's what they did. They worked 6 or 8 months out of the year in Canada, usually about 6, and they went back and lived in luxury. If I'm to believe what I was told by those guys, they had a wonderful life with the money they made here, although it wouldn't have sustained a domestic household here. So there's a reason why the migrant workers come here, and unfortunately, the Canadian government got scared after COVID, when there was a labor shortage, and they allowed a lot of migrant workers in. However, the employers are abusing that, so they're employing where they could have been employing a resident of Canada. They're employing a temporary worker who they can dump at any time they want, because and they're paying them a lot less. And the government itself has now got to turn that back, because they overdid it, and because they're a bunch of elitists. They just don't understand labor and labor laws. I mean, you just talk to a few union people, man. You don't want to water down the wages. What you do is you begin to create a very poor class of people. Now let's get into this UN spokesperson. I think they're over the top. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Tanya Obata, who's the UN Special Rapporteur on contemporary forms of slavery. So that should tell you right away where their concerns are, right? And they're most deeply disturbed by accounts of exploitation and abuse.
I think this is another elitist. I think that this UN person doesn't know anything.
Possibly.
Look, what you're doing here is you're saying, well, all those temporary workers should come into Canada and have the way you can compensate the workers for low wages is giving them a pathway to citizenship. No, you can't. Like, you can't take somebody that picks fruit and then say, okay, now you can be a citizen, and let them come into Canada and have no skills on which to build a real life. You cannot sustain yourself with picking fruit here. And the whole idea of Canadian immigration is to pick people who have skills that will fit into a modern.
And the irony here is that seems to ignore what you were saying about those who coming in, doing this 6 months worth of work in Canada, and in the fields in Canada, and then going back and living the life of Ryan. You know?
Yeah, and he said here that deeply disturbed by accounts of exploitation and abuse shared. Well, most of the migrants are tied to one employer, so yeah, you do have a situation there where if somebody comes up and the employer doesn't particularly like them, they can be sent back. Well, the
Yeah.
Canadian government has tried to make it kind of an open work permit where you might be able to work with if you don't get along with your own particular employer, then you could go on to another.
Yeah, but there has
But
to be
that doesn't
limits.
really work either, they say, because the
Well, there has to
employers
be.
know one another.
But there has to be limits on that, right? You know, because the thing is, what you don't want to do, as you quite rightly pointed it out, is you don't want to, you know, a migrant worker is here to fill a particular, fill a particular role. And those roles are not, for whatever reason, being filled locally. And, you know, what you don't want to do is therefore have an open permit for them to go, you know, so they're working in Joe's fields and now they go work at McDonald's.
That's okay as long as they're still temporary workers. So what they're called is temporary foreign worker program is intended to as a last resort for employers to fill jobs which qualified Canadians are not available. So
the problem here is we should be asking ourselves why qualified Canadians are not available.
there are a lot of qualified Canadians.
Yeah.
Canadians obviously don't need much qualification to go and pick beaches
Yeah.
or other things like that. It's just because it's a monotonous work and it doesn't pay much. That's why it's not done.
Yeah.
Why foreign workers do it? Because even though the pay is bad here, they get fed and they get housed while they're here, and they get they're allowed to be when they go back home. They have a lot of money for their families and so on.
Well, and you think about it.
A migrant worker, a migrant farm worker coming to Canada nowadays and becoming a citizen is fraught with difficulties because they cannot sustain themselves in Canada. They can sustain themselves very well from where they came from with these wages, but they can't sustain themselves in Canada like that, which really brings us back down to the point of why the temporary foreign workers are here is because if the jobs paid well enough, then we wouldn't need them.
Yeah.
But they don't. And it's in order for the farmer to make a profit and to compete with other farmers who use migrant workers, AKA in the United States, and they use a lot of illegals too. So I don't know. So when somebody like this from the UN spouts off, I see some of the relevance of what they say, that migrant workers are near slave workers. But if you go down there, and I've worked with migrant workers when I was a young guy, and I talk to them sometimes when I'm on the road. I think it's probably a good deal for both Canada and the migrant workers. If you start to put a lot of heat on our migrant worker or temporary foreign worker program, we might have to shut that down. And you don't want to do that. You don't want to shut it down. You want that opportunity open for people from the developing world to come here, make some money, take it home. And
the point about this is that making the money, that taking the money home, is that the migrant worker who comes and because they've got board, because they've got lodging, you know, because they've got food, they've got lodging, they got the capability of just pile that money up in a bank account, right? So it might not be enough for them to live on if they were having to pay the rent here in Canada, but piling it up in a bank account for them to be able to take home, you know, $10,000 or $15,000 or, you know, or more when their employment ends. If they're only spending 10% of what they make here in the local economy, that's good for them because that gives them more money to take back home with them, right?
Well, that's the whole point. they can, and like I said, I've talked to migrant workers. And when I was down on like the ones I worked with, and once in a while you talk to one of the migrant workers in and around here. I remember getting a whole carload of them one time. They were late one night here in Niagara Falls. They didn't know how to get back to Niagara on the Lake, so I had them pile in my car and took them all down there. But the thing here is, when I was Dominica, I was talking to a guy, and he had for years gone to in close around Windsor and worked on the farms there every year. He had no complaints at all. That gave him the money he needed to help start a business he had there in Dominica. So when somebody like this complains about a country like Canada, whose migrant worker or temporary foreign worker program will always have some problems to it, and you start complaining like this about it, you might cut off migrant workers from coming to Canada, because the Canadian government think it's not worth it to get all these complaints from all over the world about our migrant worker program, so we might cut it off. Mike Cushman says many migrant workers working in restaurants and abuse of the system. Exactly that. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. And as if you remember, not long ago on this show, in fact, I've mentioned it a number of times here, and I'm worried because of the cost of housing and everything here in Niagara Falls. And I expressed my cautions that we are going to get foreign workers working in our tourist trade here. We're going to get them working in the casinos, the hotels, and all the other places.
Taking away local jobs.
Yes, because they can pay them a lot less.
Yeah.
And you can use the excuse that there was a lack of workers for a while, but the lack of workers sometimes happens because of the lack of pay. And I expect that the employers, and that is the big problem here, employers will abuse this system to bring in foreign workers so they can pay them a lot less. They don't have to pay them pensions, and they don't have to worry about their or CPP or whatever. I don't know how much.
And they know they can lay them off at the end of summer. That's ideal for the tourist industry.
That's right. Well, people who worked in the tourist industry were going to get laid off in the fall anyway. So but they can send them home, and they've paid them a lot less. So it's an excuse. There is an abuse of the system, and I think the federal government has fallen into it, has helped cause the abuse, and now trying to turn it around.
Yeah. Right. And okay, students have very high unemployment rate this year, and here's your answer. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So you have foreign workers coming in and taking those jobs. And but on the other hand, knowing somebody that employs students or is responsible for hiring people for students, you get a lot of local domestic students who are just like, I don't know, privileged or something. They don't think they have to work. Though, you're getting this also from foreign students as well. And when they come to get a job, they'll also be a pain in the neck. They also seem to be privileged for some reason too. So the idea, the old work ethic idea, is just shut your mouth and go to work. If you got anything to complain about, but otherwise just get to work and go to work. Show up when you have to show up. Do a good job while you're there, and then leave. No. Can I have this, or can I have that, or can I have a softer chair, and all this kind of thing? So,
what do you want? A soft chair? You think you should have a chair that sits upright? Who do you think you are, Oliver Twist? Who on earth do you think you are, Oliver Twist? Next, you'll be wanting seconds.
Well, when I was a lad, my mother was a secretary. She had to stand up, and she had to flick the keys at the paper That's what she had to do. And she could
So
type 100 words a minute.
what would Charles Dickens think of our current era, eh?
Charlie, I think, would like it here because he himself was an abused worker as a child worker. That's why he a lot of his work focused in on the poor and the travails of the poor.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So Charlie was he was imperfect good guy. You know, I suppose like John Lennon, imperfect good guy, very imperfect good guy. You know, kind of a prophet.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so West Lincoln is now offering marriage licenses, and this is actually an intriguing article. Because you think to yourself, well, why wouldn't they be offering marriage licenses? But apparently, the problem becomes is that they didn't have enough staff, and the part of the problem here is that when you consider that this is the department that will be adding marriage licenses to applications for dog licenses, lotteries, bingos, raffles, 50-50 draws, food, cart, truck, and other licensing services for West Lincoln. And now what they're basically saying, say they're going to offer marriage license, so you can get your marriage license if you're a West Lincoln couple. Without going to anywhere else. So you don't have to go out of town. You don't have to drive to
Grimsby. You don't have to go all the way to Grimsby.
Yeah. But you can go for, anybody here in Niagara Falls can go get a marriage license today at City Hall. Right?
Well, that's what I did.
Right. You go get
that was I did on Black Friday in 1987.
Well, the stumbling block for West Lincoln is going to take 2 weeks to get a marriage license.
Well, I'm glad that modernity has come to West Lincoln. They're way out there in the country. I think part of the problem was, and this is just going by rumor, that when up until now they had to stop giving marriage licenses because they used sheepskin to write them down, and now they've discovered paper.
You had
to have the town magistrate come on his donkey to stamp it with his royal stamp, a seal of wax. So yeah, congratulations, West Lincoln, for discovering paper and pen. You can put away the sheepskin vellum.
You have some real imaginative insults about our fellow Niagarans, don't you?
I've been to West Lincoln, man.
I've been to West Lincoln, so
I'm in West Lincoln. I know that. Yeah, there's a certain point there where you have to get out of your car and then get on the trails. And you know what? Though I kind of. All along, you can't complain about West Lincoln because most of their heating's done by carbon neutral wood, But anyway, to make not light of West Lincoln, that's a big deal. So to have to wait 2 weeks, I think that's a good idea because, like, if you apply for it and you have to wait 2 weeks, you've got 2 weeks to run if you change your mind.
Yeah, but you can go to, they talk about, okay, the big problem is you can go to Grimsby or Lincoln to get a marriage license. Well, if it takes 2 weeks to get a marriage license in West Lincoln, why wouldn't you go to Grimsby to get it in 24 hours?
Well, if you want it in sheepskin, you go to West Lincoln.
I suppose
it's a sheepskin scroll. Like you roll it up and it's got a ribbon on it.
The only thing
magistrate's wax seal on it.
The only thing about that, Dave, is that they have to go to Sudbury to be registered.
Well, all the way up there.
Yeah, basically when you marry,
they got to do something in Sudbury too. So what are we going to do here?
When you marry somebody, so the officiant, when they marry somebody, has to take that license, has to write the information about the wedding ceremony, and then has to send it off to Sudbury for official, for the official licensing stuff. And then the married couple will, in about 6 to 8 weeks or more, get an official marriage license.
Well, that's okay. You know what? So just live with the gal, and you'll get your marriage in the. I don't know. Can you do it online? Can you get one online?
No.
Okay.
No, you can't get a marriage license online.
Might be cheaper just to go to Vegas, get it done, and come back.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
Okay. Well, anyway, so congratulations, West Lincoln, in having the ability to give dog licenses and marriage certificates, licenses, dog licenses, and marriage certificates, and bingo. I noticed the marriage thing was last. Bingo and dog licenses were more important.
Yeah.
I am having a hard time finding you. Is it because I'm in North Carolina?
Possibly. Yeah.
Possibly.
Remember, Karen, I got banned from Facebook. So I'm rebuilding my Facebook following right now. Okay.
He's in Facebook jail.
Yeah.
Well, you kind of knew it was going to happen sooner or later.
I know.
You know the type of character he is.
I'm not that type of character. I don't do that kind of stuff. Whatever you might say, it's not true.
We don't know everything you do, Peter Giblett.
Okay. So moving on of that kind of thing, Niagara Falls wants to hear from its residents about parks and trails funding. That's interesting because, I was commenting the other day about some of the money that was being put to parks, put trails on in Niagara on the Lake. And I have a similar concern, but I also wonder whether what we need to do is make the funding available for trails, etc., as like a percentage of the city budget. Because if you made it like 1% of the capital budget, I think that would be fairly easy to manage.
I think they're asking for
it would be a consistent thing. We just know there's a fixed amount of money and it's going to come year in, year out, and we need to get some of that. Clearly we need parks and trails, and we need the funding to maintain those parks and trails, right? So currently the program is 350 of the city's capital budget. I'm just saying, do we need to make it just a percentage of the capital budget that doesn't really even have to be considered on an annual basis? It's just 1% of the capital budget.
Well, yeah, that you can do after all the trails are built. There's going to be a point where there is a point where there's going to be as many trails can be built in the area as possible. So when that happens, then a certain amount of the budget can be put aside for the maintenance of those trails. Right now, they're asking for people what they want: more trails. And do they want more trails? I think, generally speaking, people like the idea of many, many different trails throughout the city. That one that's going to go down the old track line, the old train track line that's very close to here.
I do have some problems with some of these trails, though. I've seen blindly bicycles coming out of the end of the end of a trail just straight across a highway and head into the new trail. And it's the only people who are looking out on that, and the only reason the cyclists didn't get killed is because the car drivers were paying attention.
How is that the trail's fault?
It's the cyclists' fault who are not bloody paying attention on the trail.
Yeah,
You know?
but it has
Because
nothing to do with the trail itself.
literally
It has
going,
nothing,
no. Well,
has nothing
if
to
we're
do with
going
the
to
trail
do
itself.
something, if it's
It
going to
has to
do
do
something,
with immature or reckless
oh,
bicycle
reckless
driving,
driving is
and
a problem.
they will be there anyway. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter
I
if it's
know
the
they
trail
will.
or not the trail. So
Yeah.
that yeah,
There
definitely.
has to be some breakup of the trail and the roads, you know, to stop people from just riding across the roads willy-nilly.
Yeah, well, you know that's not going to happen until somebody gets hit, don't you?
I, I'm warning that's happened. You know, I'm warning it's going to happen. You know it.
Well,
I know it.
yeah, yeah, quite definitely. But nothing's going to happen until somebody gets hit. No one. You're not going to have that kind uh, of due diligence ahead
Yeah.
of time.
The one that I'm particularly concerned about, well, this is the one I see the most of, is the one that comes out at Thoroldstone Road and continues the other side of Thoroldstone Road. I've just seen cyclists just head straight over there. They don't pay attention at all.
Yeah, sadly.
Yeah,
However, like I said, before that incident happens, you're not going to
yeah,
have them dismount and walk across, which they should be doing. But you can understand a cyclist, particularly if they're young, they got a head of steam going and they take a quick look and they think they can beat the traffic going through there. They don't see whether the light is green or red or whatever. And so they bolt. And that's what you would do as a young person. I did it. You did it. Everybody did it.
I admit as a young person, I probably would have done, you know, and you know, I just want to see that we need to take safety precautions. That's my biggest concern there.
Okay, but the trails, all the other trails, they're asking people what they think of trails. I think trails are a good idea. The more we have, the better, because we build them now. Because if you don't build them now, they're going to get eaten up with some other kind of real estate. They'll get eaten up with residential real estate or industrial real estate or whatever. I think it's a good idea to put as many in as possible within reason,
Yeah,
so that's available to the citizenry. I
it's an
think.
interesting. There's an interesting. They're also talking about updating of pools and adding a free library to a little free library to a local park. That's an interesting one. All right, are
Well,
we
yeah,
talking
but
about like a
just the
one-room
trails.
library?
Yeah, but let's sit with just the trails for now. So they're asking people their opinions. Trails. Now, trails don't typically cost a whole lot of money like other capital expenses. You're talking roads and sewers and all that, and trails themselves take less money. They are typically low maintenance, so
Granted.
and they add a lot to the give a lot to the
Well,
people there.
the one thing that trails do, if they're done properly, is actually take bicycles off the main roads. So if you've got a trail that gets you from point A to point B, um, with touching as few roads as possible, then a cyclist is going to prefer to go by trail along a route rather than by by the main road. The only downside about the trails is that there won't be any snowplows in the winter.
Well, also though, they're mixed use trails.
Yeah,
So it's not really a cyclist dream come true, because there are people
true.
on there, particularly at certain times of the day. So if a
Yeah,
cyclist really wants to do some real good cycling, they'll have to pick early morning or late evening in order to get out of the way of residents, and that's been a real issue. I mean,
that actually brings up
the
another
people,
question.
if you notice, if you go down to Niagara Lake, you'll see a lot of the cyclists stay right on the road. They won't use the bike path that's there,
Yeah.
because they have to make so many allowances for the people that are wandering around.
Oh, yeah.
And it works both ways. They don't have some of these cyclists don't have bells or anything, so you don't know if they're coming up behind you. And the other factor is a lot of these people are just won't get out of the way for the cyclists. They won't move to one side.
Well, there are
They own that piece. They own that
I
piece
can
of
remember.
pathway.
I can remember in my youth ringing that bell and the person just blithely ignoring you and just walking in your path.
Yeah.
You know?
So
what's the point
so
in
that's
having
that's yeah. So if
I
you're
remember,
a cyclist,
I remember
what
one
are you going to do? You're going to go on the road, aren't you?
Yeah, I remember one time I'm cycling down a road in central London, and I'm ringing my bell, and this is woman who's got this gorgeous white fur coat on, and she's walking blindly. She's not even looking where she's going, and she walked straight into my bike on the chain side, and I wiped the chain right down her beautiful white fur coat. Sorry, you're not looking out. You're going to get that.
So there you go. Expect to get blasted on the bike trails. But this is anyway. The trails. Back to the issue of the trails. So they're asking people what they think of the trails. So I think it'd be a good thing for the citizens to participate in this way. I think most people like our trails. I mean, uh, people like Paul K. Lemire, we'll bring him up here. He feels that we have enough trails as it is. We don't need to spend more money on trails. However, I disagree with
trails.
I disagree with them, particularly the old railway cut. I'd like to see that whole thing developed. It would be a great trail.
There's always more trails. We can always open up more trails. The only thing is about that is that, hey, I got a big problem with so residents can vote on the website until September the 18th. But come on, city, let's not be doing this. You don't give away a pair of Apple iPods for the prize. I don't want people walking down trails with these frigging iPods, with these frigging things in their ears. They're as dangerous as the bicyclists that come charging out of them. I saw another one with the trail, one of the trails on Lundy's Lane. They walked out the trail with their iPods plugged in, walked straight across the road. Again, boop, 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 boop. Nutcases.
Well, yeah, that's why you want to give them to me, because I'm a safe person. So when I put my suggestion in, I'll take those, because you can't. It's too dangerous for anyone else to have them.
Yeah. I support that motion. I support that motion.
I'll split them with you. I'll take the left one. You take the right one.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. And, as I say, I don't really approve of this idea about you're out there and you need to be safe. So don't take things like Apple iPods. Don't be playing music on the trails.
Don't take your phone, for crying out loud. How many kids, seriously, how many people walk right in front of me looking at their phone? What they do is they stop at the corner. They do the mechanical thing. They come to the corner, stop, but they don't stop looking at their phone. So they stop and then they keep walking. Yeah. Something tells them, oh, I stopped, so that's okay. I must be safe now. But they don't bother looking.
Yeah.
Oh my
God. They've never, not once looked. Yeah, I know. So
yeah, I mean, seriously, that the phones or the iPods or anything, just the phone though, just the phone, and it's really weird at night because you'll see this face because they got the phone on. And there's enough light on the face. If you didn't see the face, you might miss it
there. Yeah,
because they step right off the curb, Yeah. And if the phone hadn't illuminated their face, they might get hit.
Yeah.
And then you honk your horn, and they wonder what the heck's going on. Where did you come from? Well, I didn't come out of nowhere. I was here.
Yeah, I was right here. One of the things my car's got is actually when you indicate right, particularly when you indicate right, it actually shines up the light at night. It will shine up a light on the curb on the right hand side.
Oh, do you also have hydraulics?
No. Anyway. Yeah, so yeah, so I don't know. Well, if you want to take part, let's copy this website and let's copy this website and put it over there. Put it up there as a link. How about that?
Okay.
Right. Hopefully that helps everybody if they're interested in it. So you go to letstalk.niagarafalls.ca, right? Which is where you can go if they're ever holding anything where they're wanting public consultations. All right.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep. Okay. So, yeah. Anything else on that? I got no comment.
Much. Just I think at this particular time, if we have the wherewithal, we should build as many trails as we can before the land gets used up in other ways.
Well, this is why I was saying about 1% of the capital budget per year, so that we have.
Well, that could be for maintenance, but
I'm meaning ongoing. We can continue to build trails throughout the system, but so long as we actually have an ongoing amount that we can actually build trails all the time.
I don't think they would commit to that, but yeah, I don't know. The 1% is fine for or some sort of maintenance amount for sure has to be put into place. However, anyway, what's next?
All right. What's next is we've got okay, where are we? Okay, so
Kamala.
Okay. The community is asked to choose Indigenous art to adorn Niagara's hospitals.
Yeah. Number one, why does it have to be Indigenous? And why are they doing that? This was the same thing they did with Wilma Morrison. They cut off most of the artistic community by eliminating to one area. Like when they did Wilma Morrison, it had to be a black person, a Canadian black person, or somewhat black heritage. That cut off an entire group of people in Niagara Falls. And since most of the people in Niagara Falls that dealt with Wilma Morrison were white or of other races, not just black, and so it's kind of like it's a bigoted kind of thing. Now they want to use Indigenous art here, and I got no problem with that. But I think it should be everybody's art, not just Indigenous. If they want to have one Indigenous thing to sort of say, okay, we're nice to our Indigenous people, we'll have this art come up here.
But again,
it really does belie the situation. Like, okay, we're going to be really nice to the Indigenous people. Now we're going to use their art in the hospital. But in the meantime, the Indigenous people are wrought with poverty, drug abuse, all kinds of things. That kind of says that, by putting an Indigenous art piece, our Indigenous community is
we're doing lip service, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's fawning, if you ask me. Now, I mean, I'd have to listen to the Indigenous community on that and what their opinion would be on what I just said. But it doesn't bode well for me when you have an artistic community and you tell them, guess what, we're going to cut you out, and we're just going to take this little section of people, and we're going to make sure that only they are the ones.
The thing about Indigenous art, though, is that it's not for everybody, is it?
Any kind of art is not for anybody.
Exactly, and exactly that. No, most art is not for everybody. One person who goes, to any piece of artwork, and I bet there's people who do this for like the Mona Lisa. some people that will go, interesting, and sit there for hours looking at every different aspect of a picture, and other people will just look at the same picture and go, what a heap of rubbish that is.
Yeah. Well, I would say that, look, I would say, like, I'd have no idea who's really going to pick the art.
Yeah.
I would ask that everybody, like, this is the choice we have. We don't have any other choice. We're going to have to use Indigenous artists. Or maybe there's just a wall just dedicated to Indigenous artists. Maybe that's it. Maybe there's going to be other art as well. But in any case, I would say that you should vote. Look at the one you like the best and vote for it. Otherwise, some weirdo arts dude is going to come along and say this is the representation of intersexuality with the moon and all this other kind of stuff. So we don't want something like that. We want a regular people looking at it and are pleased with what they see.
Yeah.
And so when you go into the hospital, you'll be pleased at what you see. It would be nice. It won't be.
Well, the hard point about going into any hospital is you're not there to look at an art gallery. You're there because you have an appointment with, a specialist or a doctor or, an MRI machine, right? And largely you want to be in and out of there as quick as possible.
Well, hospitals and libraries are there for art that won't qualify for gallery. What are we going to do with it? Well, maybe we'll put it here.
That's a cynical view, Dave.
Frederick, that's a really nice piece of art. I don't know. Thank you so much for donating it. Where are we going to put it? I know. Let's put it in the hospital.
It's a very cynical viewpoint, Dave.
Is it? Is it worthwhile, or is it justifiable cynicism?
I'll leave it there. Probably the safest thing to do.
Yeah, I definitely encourage people to vote for the art they like, or else you're going to get something weird. I don't know. I've seen the ones they've had there, and they all seem to be good to me. I mean, yeah. There's something about each one of them that
I'm not. Well, I have to say, I've seen some of these where the finished pictures. I like them where they are sketches, or seemingly sketches. Why aren't they finished is what my question is about some of these pieces that they're showing on the article, right?
Well, that might be a statement by the artist, but there's one that's quite colorful there. I would think there's one that's quite colorful there that I think that would be very pleasing to people because of the color. And when you're in a bad mood or dull or whatever, you're in a hospital, to see a stark drawing, it may be okay for some people, but to have color and something, because color feels good, when you have
color,
it reminds you of like flowers and other things.
Yeah, the color aspect I agree with. And in fact, you what you're talking about, there's what seem to be like three cows walking in a field with flowers in the background is, I think, the piece you're talking about, and that is fairly colorful.
Yeah, I think that's quite a nice one actually, and I don't know if they're cows or they're deers or
they could be anything. Part of the thing about art is I read them as cows. You could read them as as wolves or anything.
Yeah, there are some interesting sketch type things here.
Some of the sketches.
There's another one that's kind of long and it's got an eagle and a wolf in it.
Well, I get that one. That would be nice for a corridor, right? I'm not into the sketches. I really am not. There's a turtle here that seemingly has got a strawberry on its back and is a sketch of a turtle.
Yeah,
I find that one kind of weird.
It's a nice sketch, but there might be some reason why they left it as a sketch. But like I said, it would be nice to have color in it. I mean, certain areas where there might be a sketch on the
Well,
wall
it's
might be okay.
to
But the
me,
very
this is
last one is very colorful, or not the very last one, but there's one here that's got a sort of a flower right in the middle of it,
oh,
surrounded by flowers.
that is nice. Yeah, that's got. You see, that kind of thing would adorn a nice large wall. You know,
Yeah,
a vertical space.
I think
Yeah,
something like that in a kid's ward too, because it's happy. You know, it's
yeah,
lively, it's happy, it's colorful.
yeah, that would work as well. Yeah, in a kids' ward.
So I would say I would, I don't know, in my mind, there is a sketch here with doctors, nurses, and patients and stuff. However, and that may be okay for the entrance when you come in, and it's kind of you know, here you go, here's the doctors, nurses, whatever. But I'm not I'm not putting any of this art down. I'm just saying that what is more suitable, and I would say the stuff that's more colorful and uplifting, because you're in a hospital, man. You're in a place where this full of pain and sadness.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it's the pain and sadness that I think is the biggest challenge. And as you say, things like that flower picture, which is all in, you know, all in primary colors, etc., is the type of picture that is uplifting. You know, because you can look at it and and see different aspects of it.
Yeah, it's one of a it's a really nice piece of art, and the other one with the cows or caribou or whatever they are, that's also nice because you kind of can add your own story to it. You see these migrating animals and the colors and everything, and that's colorful. Like I said, the one with the flower would be good for a kids ward. As a matter of fact, I think they should commission artists to do something maybe for a kids ward or for a cancer ward or something else, given the needs of the patients at the time. You know, you might find you go to a cancer ward, you're going to get a lot of people that's being in pain and cancer treatments and all this other stuff. So they might want something a little uplifting, something that brings joy into the life.
Yeah.
Not something where they have to look at it and try to interpret, you know?
Yeah. In fact, actually, I'm thinking on a cancer ward, like a beach picture with a nice chair on the beach might be the sort of thing that would be encouraging for the cancer ward, because at least you can get out of where you are in the cancer ward into that chair on the beach.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah,
A 5 minute,
chair on the beach or a field of flowers.
That kind of thing. It may only be a 5 minute getaway.
Children, like children playing or families like that. That's always uplifting.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, I'm not saying there's anything wrong. Again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with any of these pieces of art. I just know that half the ones in here are not to my taste. And that's probably the same for everybody.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And,
so, yeah. So
and the ones in here that I've said I liked, probably other people are going to turn around and say they're disgusting.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I got one here. This would be good. This would be from Bansky. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Kid with balloons.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, but that's any case. I think you got to go to work and pay your taxes. If you don't go to work, you don't pay your taxes. We'll have to send you back to England.
Why would I want to pay taxes anyway? Why would any of us want to pay taxes?
You came here because the taxes are less than England. That's why you came.
I'm joking. You know. I'm joking.
Look, yeah. Are you a product of a different generation's temporary foreign worker, and you ended up staying? Check this man's credentials.
No, I have the actual qualifications.
Qualifications for a peach picker?
No, I have the qualifications to be a lawyer and to be an IT professional.
Well, we need more peach pickers than we need those. So if I don't see you on the farm, you're deported.
Thank you, Dave. Just what I need. You know.
That's
So
uplifting.
so we won't have a program tomorrow.
Well, you can do it from England. Anyway,
Like I want to be back there. Like I want to be back there. Oh my God. Bankrupt place, you know? Do I really want to be there?
Oh God, there's problems. Well, you know what? We can discuss this another time. They've had the riots, of course, but this is just the beginning, I believe, because as sociologists or whatever, I've read a bunch of stuff now, or watched and listened to a few things. When you keep if you have a country and you keep filling it up with people who are foreign to that country, that country could take it for so much. There's a certain rate at which you can bring in different cultures and all that, and they can be absorbed or tolerated. When it's seemingly too much for the native people there, then you start to get riots, and then you start to get upsets. So for every government that needs to have a level of immigration, it's wise to do it unlike France, let's say, who have ongoing problems constantly with their Muslim.
Well, remember how France is. France extends its borders to all across the world. France has MPs from all across the world.
The problem, however, is when France is full of people from Morocco and Algeria and Tunisia, and they have never been integrated. And that is because France unwisely allowed that kind of migration. Nobody thought to say how fast and how easily will it be integrated into society. And so what you do have is you have a population that takes generations upon generations to integrate. And that's part of the reason is because of the religious and cultural differences in the communities. If you bring people in slowly at a time, then they will be able to adjust their culture to the culture in which they come into. But if you bring them in a lot, then what happens is they don't change, and they become people of their own culture inside your country. This happens with immigration anyway. In the vast amount of Italian immigrants we had, you'll find women there that have been in Canada for 50 years won't even speak English because they stayed home like they're supposed to. They never left the house. They never went off and got educated. Their children all did, but not them. So they stayed within the Italian community or whatever other community, but in this area, Italian community, never learned English, maybe a few words, and
enough to do the shopping.
So they go to their whole world is an Italian world inside Canada, not their children, but them. But if you bring massive amounts of people of that, it's going to happen like it did in France. So you have huge amounts of North African immigrants who have no place in France, or at least not yet. It would take generations to do that because the French unwisely brought in too many, and now you have a poor class of people who are Muslim, and I don't know, and that's why they have laws now where you can't show religious paraphernalia or wear a burqa or something like that. They have to try to dilute the culture that's conflicting with the native culture. Anyway.
All right.
I've said enough. Without further ado, I bid you adieu. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Bye.